Camp. That was pure camp. That was so fun.
It was phenomenal. The prop work was hilarious, and I think added to the overall thing. Plus the memorization was just intense and it was crazy. The wordplay was super fun. I was drawn in for all three acts.
She really effectively used her words to describe the cartoonish actions, and that they were conveyed really well, and also juxtaposed excellently against the more realistic violence.
All Mackenzie's poems are epic, and now it's been performed as an epic poem. And I predict a very well choreographed and staged one-woman show in Village.
It was really unique, very intense, visceral, and it just really displayed her talent for memorization, creativity, and just this streak of uniqueness that I haven't really seen for a long time. So I think it's really special.
It was artistry. It was pure, magical artistry.
When thoughts drift to earlier days, memories, they seem a hazy malaise. In my younger years, I started a war. From this world, many lives I tore, but I didn't have to go far, just out my mother's back door. That's where I found some enemies, upon which vengeance I swore. Wasps! In swarms and swaths about they seemed to buzz. To little me, the air looked a static fuzz that menaced me from up above. Those little buggers, when for about the art I tried to play, they'd fly by and I'd bolt away, hide inside the rest of the day, peeking out through the shutters as I'd shelter behind all the clutter. Stacks of boxes and bags of trash, smashed against corners and walls like some secret stash. Indeed, I couldn't remain inside. Their thoughts went to places hidden in my mind that might collapse. In around me, perhaps, like those towers and mountains of refuse might crash. Therefore, outside I had to go, where I could run and imagination flow. But first, me and these wasps had to come to blows. Else in mid-romp and play, I'd be struck with fear. My person froze. Search with weary eyes for my foes, till I hear a buzzing. Near my ear, spring to the street. There, air is clear. Gosh, in hindsight, I'm lucky I didn't get hit by a car. No way was this sensible. Some fear then drove me far. Because on top of the mess I lived in, a small remark did stay in my head. This critical contextual key was the focus of my dread. My father, he was allergic. One sting indeed, he'd be quite sick. To me, a kid, I feared by bees he'd be dead. This way, half that summer I ran. Till one day, I came up with a plan. I was tired of running. They bug, I man. They flew and had 6 legs, but with 2 I would stand. Their hive was a fortress, hid in the dregs. My mind was a ram, that into them I slammed. Wasps wielded weapons of cruel poisonous methods. Swords swung in aggression. From me, they expected tears and begs. Instead, I would tear them out by hand. Had a day to myself, a kid home all alone, so I had a battle that frankly got overblown. Set up a siege of which the likes you wouldn't believe. First had to cover up head to toe, could not leave any skin exposed. Lawn pants, lawn shirt, laces done up tight. Thick winter gloves, a mismatched pair that fit right. Pasta sack, made up brunch, yum. Dark brooding sunglasses would cut out the light. Up top, I popped on my stepdad's cowboy's hat. Thus, I got over to the garage, all matter of fact. 9-year-old me, looking for a fight. My foes too were armed for a violent defense, prepared for protracted combat to commence. Acceptable losses at an extreme expense. But I got weapons too, alright, tools with which to better recompense this monarchical insectoid menace for the crimes of building a nest inside my fence. Sledgehammer I found, for nothing profound. Just wanted to knock something around. I'd seen documentaries all about bees, how the keepers use smoke to put them on the squeeze. We even had at this place an old garbage can. Its metal was worn, dense warped by rust, brown, and tan, but in its lid I found a shield with which I could withstand whatever those wily wasps might hurl from their ramparts, whatever else they might throw with their bugsy black arts. Thus, I thought I was dressed to kill, ready for the battle thrill. Would I succeed in the quest I sought to fulfill? Though, as I strode up before in the morning light, took a moment before for my delight, I glanced over to the tall pine trees in my mother's backyard that ran down the fence off to the right. The bugs, this space they hadn't marred. It stretched out for a while, spacious, green, and overgrown. The perfect place to play if I'd been left all alone. Dew glimmered on the pines and leaves, the sun shone through the trees. Oh good, this early fog might weigh down those terrors flown. Indeed, the yard was a big beautiful space, plenty of place for me to dance and frolic with grace, but if only wasps too had not made this a home. Therefore, I would do my part to rip and tear them apart. Waltzing up to the big green garage, yes indeed, the mist had hampered a sallied entourage. Carried the shield in my left, drugged the hammer like a rock. It was their home, therefore I had to knock. I'd scouted before in the previous weeks, seen the spaces they called through, the places they squeezed, and from which handles they flew. Like mighty Carthage, many walls they must have too. Crashing them down would require delicate, devious techniques. So I reared up the hammer, a real mammer-jammer. It crashed with a clatter, paneling shook, dust fell from the nooks. Sighed, a low murmur undertook. A glancing blow but scratched, though my will would be unmatched. So again, I reared up the hammer, this time a real slammer. A corner of acrylic tile shrimp whacked with a clatter, a fist-sized hole shattered. The growing buzzing in my excitement forsook. I twisted back, young frame outstretched, my intent with one more swing the panel stretched. But, wham-whoosh, out swarmed the hive's advance guard. Mavericks made up the vanguard. Recklessly they roared out in a raging drone. I was caught out in the open all alone. Now I was in the danger zone. Thus, behind my shield I betook to better hamper stingers, like little pin missiles that through the air whistled, spikes, barbs, and thistles. Beneath this barrage, I bristled. Dropped my hammer with a clamor. With two hands braced my shield in defensive manner. Those cunning wasps, heinous Hymenoptera, they had archers arrayed in the parapets, loosing stingers like arrows with no regrets. As I dropped my hammer, bugs buzzed a big huzzah! Huzzah! I took a step back. The villains! They quickly attacked. Two squads sallied out, a mobile detachment for some skirmishing harassment. They moved to flank me, but I wasn't distressed. I had a lot left. This wasn't over. I had a lot of fight left. Planted my feet and leapt up into the air. Bashed down half of one squad with no care. Their formation broken. First squad fell back in despair. Second squad, in anger, abdomens reared, letting fly a volley that most creatures feared. But I twisted midair, out of my shield with one stroke and deflected those projectiles from their projected path. Harmlessly they peppered instead against my buckler and fell like lead. I landed, a deep end of the knees, kept my eyes open for the pesky. There they are, circling back on the breeze, preparing another strafing run expertly. Indeed, it was a flying bee. Behind me I heard the cranking of a winch. I turned back, but too late. That queen bitch, she fortified her defenses with more than mortar and pitch. A brace of ballistas set in the hive's towered vistas. No time to wonder how they assembled such torsion contraptions. Bolt streak my way. I needed reflexive reactions to dodge these two piercing assassins. Brought up my block, a circle to chalk, the speeding points, aim for my joints. I crouched. One shot went overhead, cutting wisps of hair. Stumbled from this near miss, fumbled I wobbled. I was completely confabbled. Thus I tumbled on my derriere. Whilst a whistling whooshing came on rushing through the air, aimed for my head, a deadly mark. Would this next bolt bring death's kiss? But as I gripped my shield, as I crashed into the ground, it clanged up in a fortuitous rebound. By my face, what luck! So when that bio-cast chitinous coral dropped from its arc, it punctured the flimsy metal lid, just shy of my eye. Too close for comfort, I couldn't deny the deteriorating state of this situation. I had to tactically retreat to the forward position. I reached for my hammer, but I had to roll back. As squad 2 came out for their second attack, they dove from the sky like the dreaded Luftwaffe. Panic nearly gripped me. I was shocked at the roaring buzzing of these aerial aces as fast they dropped into their attack run. This had gotten less fun. Why would wings carry such terrible things as opposed to pretty yellow birds that sing? Leaping away from the garage, escaping the torpedoed garage, that exploded behind me like a concussive massage. Heart beat as I moved my feet. For my life I could keep. Bound up the stairs, made silent prayers. One quick little kick. My defense shorn. Huddled myself in a protective cuddle. Breath ragged. Felt like death. Had to try something new. To my doubts, I must be deaf. Therefore, up I staggered to answer the wasps with a new reply. But the hammer, it was too heavy and unwieldy. It let my enemies control the breeze freely. They molested me from up there. Had to take them out of the air, if their hive I was to impair. So, I dug through all the boxes, searched stacks of trash, and found myself some better weapons to fashion for a little bit more than just fashion. First, though, to see what the bug's response is to my initial assault. So to the back porches, one clear window I did vault. Had found binoculars in one bag to better check the fortress since I'd cracked the crag of that big green garage that was stuffed with critters, filled with even more garbage. Sometimes I heard my stepdad in there, smashing some kind of glass for kicks perhaps, or did he wail in despair? No time to think on that. Had the scout see how those villainous Vespidae had moved out. Putting my eyes up on the lenses, got a good look at the defenses, but what I saw for a moment made me distraught. My actions before, had it all been for naught? Those wicked wasps, they'd brought up a lot, as of many wars before they had fought. They sallied out the gates like the Crusaders at Antioch. The tactical instincts for insects must be passed down in genetic lots. The squads in the air were joined by 4 more that circled the sky in a practiced coordinated form. They were backed up now by a heavy infantry swarm that buzzed low to the ground. And was that armor they wore? A scale mail made of hardened beeswax? Oh gosh, weapons too they didn't lack. Tall tower shields and broad short swords. Those bugs, brought up in a manipular manner they were. 3 rows of formations that could operate independently, a rank and file that didn't fight for awards. Some would stay in the back, some would charge, others scream. Aw, geez, these bees could hit me in the knees. Enough of the panel 2 I had cracked that I could see their walls had been expertly stacked. Hexagonal blocks of biomatter smashed against the hive in rings and leveled step ladders, about which more wasps buzzed, walked, and clambered. Many, too, were tucked behind the battlements, preparing a volley for when the fight commenced. And the hive itself, it must have been immense. Couldn't see the whole thing, but enough for a sense of the scale of it. How it hung from the space between walls. It was bigger than me now. Much bigger than 9-year-old me was. A grotesque mash of a hard and pulpy mulch, just the sight of which made me nearly lose my brunch. Indeed, I wondered how I could hope to quell warriors nature trained so well. While I couldn't soar in the air, I did learn on the fly, and from our first encounter I thought of a couple new tricks I could try, and a couple new tools to apply. I was ready. Round 2, fight! Had to be unexpected, any approach would be detected, decided to use my head like a hammer. I was the mammer jammer, crashed through the window in an abrupt manner. My shield out front, shards of glass I did shunt, sending shrapnel into the first couple rows. Insects cut down in droves, shredded by crystalline razors, glittering bits that through hundreds clove. These were just the opening party favors, had a big show in mind with pyrotechnics from inside. From it, these bugs couldn't hide. I would win the war with my own song or dance. For real, these bees would not like my kind of jazz. Figure still hung high in the air. My shield out front, my right arm held behind. My legs hung ready for the ground I would find. But the airborne detachment wasn't caught unawares. Squads 4 and 6 attempted the blitz. Came on my sides, ready to fire my thighs. Though I had a surprise. My right arm I did rise. In it, a new tool I brought, and without a second thought, spun round the 360-degree arc. This whirling dance of death was art. Squad 4 and 6 status, ripped and torn apart. I'd swung in a flash, in a dervish fash, with a weapon I'd pulled from the trashy stash. A wide, flat, plastic shovel that would give those bugs trouble, just like squads 4 and 6. Spinning, now that's a good trick. The next part of my plan, to use this spare spade like a fan. My momentum still pulling me down, use the force to swing my shovel down, onto the ground, with a pound. A plastic snap and crack, smashing the first unit on the right, sending the two behind it blasting back. What a sight! Bodies burst at near instant impact with the garage door. Care packages popped in the blood and gore. The wasps now were in disarray. Was it I who would carry the day? Raised my shield over my shoulder to block squad 3 and 5 desperate strength. Reflexive reactions kept me safe. I grew confident. I got bolder. These insectoid stratagems, however, were much older. My feet now finally landed on terra firma planted. My soul's crushing the dead and the lame. I lorded over the insects' inert remains. But through their ranks, an alarm sang. Hormonal signals that ran through their brains. Contingencies activated. They wouldn't go down in flames. The ranks made a heel turn. Legions not about to adjourn. Victory, their only concern. A buzzing rang out. For the swarm!
For the swarm!
Thus, columns rapidly were formed. In the air, too, they came on in the blur. Squads 3 and 5 joined by 2 plus the first from before. They dove from all sides, blasted buzzing bombers. This bizarre adventure, it really was bonkers. Indeed, too, I touched down within the range of the siege engines to potentially perform their deadly exchange. Threats, mounted, danger, compounded. I was completely surrounded. Unknown to me, the queen, the scene she did survey and arrange. She thought to reverse this battlefield's interchange. Peace for her hive must be obtained. From the balcony, she took it all in with her eyes' many lenses. Her wasps must attack, not hide in the defenses. So she reached up with her foreleg and pulled down her antenna to radio out her new strategic agenda.
Calling all wasps, calling all wasps. Let's show this kid just who she's crossed. She's in our sights. We have her now. So bugs battle on for comrade lost. The aggression we will not stand from man. So defend our hive at any cost. That's our plan. But of this battle I tire. Get her now. Shoot her. Concentrate fire. Pulverize this pesky aid for our grubs. Chow. Over.
The queen's words were moving. Her force galvanized, morale maximized. The insects now too could feel the thrill as they moved syncretically for the kill. Swept my right leg back, bent to the knees. This violence, a contest wasp did naturally excel. A cry came up from the battlements. Fire at will! I twisted my torso about 60 degrees. Center column charged in a swell, the other two upon my sides quickly fell. Beetle horn formation, my flanks they meant to assail. Shield over my leg, muscles flexed, yet at ease. The airborne aces dove hard as well, intending to let death fly like hail. From that torrent in the wall, from that hole in the wall, beneath the torrent I befell. A rang of stingers, bolts with kinetic force and impel. Christ, what power! Would I be repelled? They attacked as one, through and all personnel. It was total war, so they unleashed hell. I stood in the pose I had seen on the TV. My cowboy's hat fell off, my hair gently blew in the breeze. Oh ho, the swarm thought by approaching me, my crusade would be quelled. But I could beat them without getting closer. I'd carry the day, my victory seized. Didn't lose my composure, that was the key. One quick flick of my shovel, arrow storm, no trouble, whippable whirlwind. A gale to bind, shots in the air, blind. Brought my shield across my chest, but flung it instead. Bouncing off that big green rubber shed, taking 5 out of the air, back off the house, taking the rest out of the air, and oh wow, looks like I'm the captain now. The legions yet their lines did dry, whilst my buckler bounded without care, brought down the shovel with two-handed flare, stood it on its small edge, starting at my left, with strength forceful and deft, a wide swing was cleft. into the jagged cement, cutting jagged cuts and marks, igniting searing sparks that cascaded across the ranks. The infantry rent. The Legion literally disintegrated into a soup of hot waxy honey once more. An ironic pesticide. The Legions, on this occasion, suffered in a sticky decimation. Had made their assault with forceful vehemence, but feeding wasps in the field was super easy, barely an inconvenience. Though their walls were prepared for a sterner defense. The shield, it flew back to my hands. So much for the monarch's plans. I hatched a scheme of my own, and with one more play, the queen I'd dethrone. Stood stoic in the driveway, a kid here all alone, felling fictionally fearsome foes, supposed source of my woes. Coolly brushed off my shoulder, posture recomposed, stood strong like a boulder, or perhaps more akin to a rock. Took my first steps in what felt like a week. Indeed, I thought these beads for my house, instead of a situation I knew not how to douse. But, right then, of one thing I was aware. I beat those beleaguered bees with ease, and now phase 2 I bring to bear. Another volley? What folly? Thwarted simply by a swing of my shovel's breeze. I let the spade drop, with a clankety clop. About it no more could I care. Neither the freed hand so from under my shirt I could tear out an old rolled up newspaper stuffed and tucked in there. Put the tinder behind my bucklers, blocking scattered stingers, but ha! The showers of spikes and thistles had grown much thinner. So I hurled my shield, so into the fist-sized hole it jammed. Uncontested, would I enact the rest of my plan. Fished my hands in my pocket for a book of matches, so the hive by smoke be betook. Calmly and without hesitation lit a stick. A fortuitous sign, but a light breeze, the little flame did malign. Gah, signs are a trick. Grab the second, or try to strike the second using the back flap, but I rip off its sulfuric head. Was this a trap? Glance up to hear it clashing like a broken muffled cymbal. Oh, look up to see the garbage lid shake with a tremble. Wasps trying to not get free with, not wasps trying to not get free with a tumble. One more match, this had to be it. One swift, little flick, successfully lit. Oh, how slick. Ignited the papers like a torch, so the hive I could scorch. With the matchstick's flame close into my fingers, but with no thought, just reaction. Tossed it back as I went. On this battleground, I felt no reason to linger. Thus, I strode up with a casual vigor, as the match's still burning flame landed back by the dismembered airborne wasp's remains. Bug fuel pooled from broken parts and veins, and when the tiny embers grazed the surface of that blue-black pool, tremors rocked the pavement, a fireball into the air to descent. But I didn't turn back, could not for a sec relent. Thus, with supreme confidence, got up the hole I first made when I began this escapade. With my makeshift torch in hand, these wasps would be flambéed. Reaching for the shield, I hear a heave, somewhat muffled. Perfect, I think. I'll wait for their buzzled ho! Pull the shield. Wasps revealed around that inner space how they bumbled and knocked. Those intending to ram my impromptu barricade crashed into each other. Concussive comrade contact clocked the cannonade. Oh. Brought my torch up to the entrance so the smoke could pour in. They fell back. Was this scheme working? So I took one of the matches and put them in the papers for good measure. Took that last one and put it in my pocket. Surprise tool for later, Then I tossed in my fiery plasmic treasure. After all, I mean, if wasps were just meaner bees and keepers used smoke to put them on the squeeze, would fire these natural threats better police? In my dark shades, the flames did flicker and rise. Ha! For this no win for the bugs could I surmise. I'd won the day. Victory is mine. The dancing lights from the growing fires gave me a better view at what I did conspire to destroy. Knock around like a borrowed, misunderstood toy. At me now, no little insect did scoff, only letting out panic buzzing and hacking coughs. A little feeling crawled into my thoughts. The wasps, they wailed for their queen, for she had truly led them wisely, as themselves with no compromising. The words in my mind were these doubts. I looked up with them, and there, behind the nook, stood the matriarch in her scenic overlook, 4 middle legs behind her, wings crossed, as the conflagration lapped at the lower lofts. The feelings in my heart, too, were now embossed. Over the tragic scene, the queen gazed down, and her mandibles, were they in a frown? From this state she could not herself divorce. Had to go down with the hive, of course. These were wasp ways, come from older days, and the future that remains. Well, I mean, they scared me from the air. Why attack me outside my own? Though I mean, they did drop bombs that scorched and burned the ground outside my. But I mean, like, they scared me from the air. Why attack me outside my own? Oh, good golly! Interrupting the buzzing cacophony of insectoid misery, and what most certainly wasn't nearly an existential epiphany, smoke now freely flows out the tiny cracks and holes of that big green garbage bin, of which no critic could fit in. A joke, this so-called garage, now adorned with a red-orange corsage, a fiery flower that in bloom lit with panache, if only from all, it didn't demand homage. I had to think. I couldn't let myself get burned like this. Had to think. Use my quick wits. Else my own home be burnt to ash and bits. Oh me. Oh my. No time to wonder why. Or stop and cry. A fire raged, and by my hand this blaze was made. So by my hand this mortal flame must be unmade. Ran back to the house's far side, and there! The hose! Just a jiff to unwind. Why are things so hard to unravel and yet so easy to find? Ran back with a mess of tubular mesh in my palms. I rapidly strung it out without pause, all the way back to that horrid garage. There, now before it's green had just been, before it's green had shown just sickly weathered and worn. Now it glowed a maleficent fluorescent. Didn't know a building could shine incandescent. Its front was, oh jeepers, covered in specks, black, yellow, and red. Whims and lings torn asunder from the little creepers. Indeed, the garage was now a scene of horror and gore, when before, like me, it had been despondent and alone. What a distracting, distressful, guilty lament that fills my thoughts with a regretful torment. Shouts of your fault ring through my head, and goodness me, look at that! I forgot to turn the water on the tap. My feet now move with ease as an easier task I have to achieve. Ran back to the far side, too fast to stop! With the wall I collide. There, the handle, trying to twist it hard. Is it already on or just in a jam? I turn with all might, using two hands till it snaps. With a crack? Well, that wasn't the plan. The broken metal handle falls from my palms. The cursed conflagration, how could I calm without the water flowing underground? Put my own back up against the wall and slowly slid down to my ass, fell upon the soft, downy grass. 9-year-old me, curled up into a ball, down in the, mud! Okay, Act 2 is done.
That's the end of Act 2! We will now be taking a short 10-minute mission, run to the bathroom, grab a drink, and then come back for the conclusion, the epic conclusion of Not the Beast!
Jumped up so quick, struck the faucet with a thud. From that bashing, ringing sound, I knew my head wasn't just empty, meaty, and round. After the frenetic kinetic connection, checked my hair. It was wet. Moisture! Only one thing that could have meant. H2O through my hose freely flowed, stopped by some dastardly knot, I suppose. Thus, I picked up the plastic piping, held it aloft. I traced its path, a mangled tangle I hoped to cross. There it be! How before could I not see? The twisted tie that was so tight it kept the raging waters in a swell. What a sight! The hose ballooned, held back a typhoon. I go towards it. Like a loon! I grasped the spot, tossed my gloves. I found the blasted spot. Nimble fingers worked to set the torrent free, to take the temperature down a couple 100 degrees. Poked and prodded this Gordian knot, till I found a loose spot. Fitted my pinky, slipped in the seam, and with a desperate yank and obscene scream, stretched the hose out on either side as long as my wingspan was wide. Relentlessly, the raging reservoir rapidly raged through the curling cue. My reflexive reactions had no time to reply. Water blasted. With hydropower hose flew. My right arm, ensnared by the tangle I fought to do undo. So I turned and shrugged my shoulders. What was I supposed to do? Felt like I might lose a limb at the socket. Instead, took off like a rocket. Was in my pocket. Yanked skyward, up and down, across the horizon. Hurtled by my right wrist in a twisting, twirling, animated fashion. Yanked by the rubber hose. What a blasted contraption. In the sky I sped and spun. This was definitely, positively not fun. Whoop, there went brunch. Next crashed against the house with a crunch. Smashing an imprint of me a foot deep, then wrenched with a lurch. A rubble streaked behind me as I flew up near the clouds, up too far, astronomically high. But I had to get free. This couldn't be how I died. I still knew how to learn on the fly. This wasn't a challenging ride. Reached the peak of the surge's climb. Now back down to the ground, I sped in a dive. Sonic playing broken. What force propelled me on this surging wave? Wind rushing over me, streaming down vertically. My meaty face and fleshy waves flopped as earth-bound body dropped. Pants and shoes, away they flew, down to just my shirt, drawers, and socks. Close enough now to see how below. The hose had ripped up the backyard in its crazy circular show, cutting rivers and lakes and the turf all around. Though not a drip or drop on the garage to be found, the conflagration must rage on. The hose, its current upward arc foregone, its spin now at the inflection point towards the trough, rocketed back up from the siphon's hydro pump. Again, I'm blasting off. But now I was hurtling at the trees. This was gonna be rough. Gripped the hose, twisted my hand. This sardonic lifeline was good enough. Traveling at inhuman speeds, the cutting winds left me guff. Torn off my skin and organs did slough. I was now just bones in the buff. My fleshy bag, by my feet lagged. Tendons and sinews clung and hung by the flexor hallicus. My meat barely kept from flying off into the abyss. Bones rattled with a tad. But this situation I thought grand. Felt I could counter this binding spell and get myself off this roller coaster from hell. Twisted my free hand to swing it round, so my right hand by my left I might remand. Threw up my arm and grabbed my wrist. Now to end this unrestrained, undulating gravitic tryst. One pull of the wrist, off it pops. Yoked my right hand off of the carpets. My bones were plug and play, didn't just prop up my carcass. Screwed back on my wrist, water whipped on regardless. Stretched out my hand, good as new. Now what was there to do? Glance left, right, then looked. Gulp. I was still way high up. I reached back for a sign, my bones at their shakiest, but all I found was a white wooden post that read, and a dusty cloud added poof. Once more speeding down, straight to the ground. Wind whistled all around. Would my bones shatter with a clatter? Hurtling feet first towards the earth. Suddenly, center of gravity reversed. My skull that hung low. Did the hose snag my legs? Oh no. Brought my arms to my face to guard against trees as around me blew a gentler breeze. Bones now rocked in a motion more slow. My fleshy leisure suit now acted as a parachute. Drifted down till with the ground a soft impact. Laid down my bones face down where I could touch grass. The dermal chute, what held my heart, drifted, rippled, swayed, till back over me it fell and covered. Like a bedsheet gently tossed, bones subsumed and embossed. Hearth and home, back with my foundation, and no longer apart. Stretched, glad to be back in a frame. Worked to sit up here in my mother's backyard again. Ran my hands through my hair, and my chest I clasped. It was the first time since I'd had brunch that I could relax. Checked myself, no cuts, scrapes, or stings. Indeed, been wrecked more by myself than black and yellow bugs on wings. Rocked by my wild fancied flings. Stood up cautiously, yet still a little dizzy. For my tizzy, pants and shoes nowhere to be found. A destination unknown were they bound. Guess my laces weren't so tight. While searching disorientedly for my astray thrifted fit, I noticed where I suppose the hose with hydraulic spins from its blasting blows had wound itself in the upper branches of the tree. However, didn't hang from accusations, forced to guiltily submit. Instead, above it swung. Clear rushing water did still run, through branches, leaves, and pines that scattered the mist like a fine showerhead of fluid scattered the stream mist like a fine showerhead, sprayed a mist over the whole backyard. With a dewy glisten was it enshrined. Through the soft spray, the sun's rays brightly shined. Light bounced in a manner mysterious to 9-year-old me, still new to experience. The dancing lights put on a show to us quite rare. I knew what I saw now was really serious. In the sky, a double rainbow. Now I was truly delirious. Oh, the garage too. It had been doused. Its green now with a slick sheen gleamed. No, in this overhydrated state, no inferno could be roused. No flames to smoke those wasps out. Any preempted spark, or any attempted spark preemptively put out by the fount of fluid redoubt that granted extinguishing powers. It meant to burn up bugs. Instead, had flooded the foliage. Good grief, life. It is a crazy voyage. The whole of experience lays open before us, where all things connect and grow as if we were living in a humongous forest. Better if we all acted more as rangers, guiding and residing instead of being presumptuous prescriptive arrangers. Though, even if you lose your view of the whole for the floor or canopy, a lot of beauty there is to be had in every individual flower and leaf. Just don't sit about in the dark and let fetid thoughts tease, else mistake the bugs in the woods as the trees. Speaking of buggers, wasps. Mayhaps the fire was put out too late. Needed to check for myself so my guilty feelings might abate. Ran back to the hole, but it was now too wet and dark. 'Twas illuminated before by my hand-lit spark. But now I would let the sun play its part. Searched the grass instead of bags of trash and found myself a thick, big, dark brown stick. Thought it'd do the trick. Jammed it through the crack, into the hole, behind that warm green panel, and with two-handed flare and a swift heave-ho, flying off to the panel go, landing in the floody, mudded grass with a persleep, now to lean my head in for a peep. About the ramparts, no bugs waited the fire defensive remarks. Silence is absolute. Oh, by flames the fortress had been flickered. Now, smoky stained spots and black and scorch marks maimed and marred its beeswax blocks. Where before they'd been a busy bustling silence, now sat absolute. But despite it all, the hive stood resolute. And there, look, in the corner nook of the bastion rolled and bumbled across its scaffolding. What? Why? How? This was quite baffling. A micro-mini fit to wasp scale, tumbleweed, tumbled down the facade. A ghostly whispering gale weaved through the battlements. Before its outer walls now sat empty and forlorn, when it had before been like me, simply alone. If only I too could speak with that royal Vespide who sat lofty in her throne, I'd surely weave words in a wise way, righting what's wrong. Why, maybe even too she could learn a thing from me, and from her too could I study. Why, we could climb up trees, skip and jump, we could even press wildflowers. Why, she may one day rightfully claim her God-given powers to become my very own bestest bug buddy. Eee! We could get bracelets. So about my eyes scanned for there! That's where the great gate is. Secured behind lock, barred, barricaded the bugs dwell. But I didn't see no bell, therefore it'd be polite to knock. Ran with a rap-a-tap tick of my thick brown stick, ran it over the iron-like bars of the portcullis, expecting a regal roll-up befitting a victor of conquest, like the pretty all-right King Pyrrhus of Epirus. This time, a murmur I didn't miss, not a sound of resignation, but a chorus of lively wasps, singing of this interest. The fortress jived, thoughts joined by beats and brass, as chains and winches pulled and shook each other on pulling and turning gears on screwy winding, a thumping bass sound, as steady as the gears were wound. Without a present danger, this clearly warranted a wondering. How had bugs procured such contraptions? From felling many foes from prior battles and mining the loot after the battle? Or did they too grow craft and learn off their reflective refractions? Stood scratching my head, in silence a pondering. Thus was a kid more about thought than action. Thus was I taken unawares as all the winding and grinding produced a flight of chiseled marble block stairs, stopping just above my hairs. Down its steps on two chitinous hind legs did titter and totter. The wasp queen now marched center stage to the hive's jazzy chatter. Antenna adorned with a golden wreath, a purple toga lay about her thorax in a sheath. At a fiddle too, like Nero she diddled, danced with moves a glistening. But I was unaware, I wasn't watching or listening. Too bad. This highfalutin hymenoptera, for real, a sight that would compel ya.
This kid, I don't think much. So I think I'll trip this toddler with a trick from the old books. Hey!
An echoing cry that my attention demanded, followed by a genteelly slyly posed question that my naivety confounded.
Kid, you got a match?
Oh, of course. I mean, right away I did acquiesce. After all, it was a polite request. Oh, look at that. Already my kindness karmas were paid. For me? Why, thank you. What a lovely cigar. How it sparkles and burns. I shouldn't even be smoking. I am only 9. What a jazzy friend in the Bugsy Wasp Queen that I find. Like a birthday candle, streak spark and a wick jammed in the end. Huh, guess the fuse had to burn down before. Wait a second! She fooled me! This was no cigar, but a cylindrical stick of TNT, bright red! Gotta throw it back quick. My body turns, but only to see the monarch smugly smiling, and in her forelegs she reared up, my hammer? Ha! I guess they do scavenge the field in the calm after. With one downward swing, the queen did ring my skull like a gong. About I spun. Birds and bees danced about my head in a starry tease. I sought my feet, now facing away from the garage, only to find I'd stopped my spin at the same time as...
Kerplage!
I stood, an ashy ruin, a blackened husk that barely looked human. My face blasted round 180 degrees. Despite my charred conundrum, my eyes still sat blinking, and I could see the queen waving at me. And was she winking? She jumped back behind the gates with the gears still clattering. And as, right before they closed, she hung a sign that read, "No soliciting." I hung my head down, neck back in shame. Things had blown up in my face, and I had only myself to blame. So over to the back porch, forwards I did lurch, though every step felt haggard, since from this perspective I seemed to move backwards. So I reached up and turned my face around, and as I did, my charred shell fell all around. I'm back in my human form again, just in time for the sound of my stepdad pulling up. He'd gotten home early, no time to straighten things out in a flurry. Oh gosh, I just stood there, I knew not what to do. A kid surrounded by destruction. I must have looked a guilty fool. As he got out of his hatchback and calmly approached, I attempted words, but they stuck in my throat. Humana, humana, humana was all I spoke. But as he walked up, he didn't do much. Just patted my head and walked on into that big rubbish shed. What happened next? I haven't got a hunch. Maybe went inside, played a few games, probably made some lunch. It's hard to sift through the hazy malaise of memories as I drift from earlier days. Of this, I don't have much left to say. I'm just about all out of jokes. After I'm done speaking, I'll have to call my mother and apologize for these actions I'd pathologize. Because I did try to destroy that hive. This is a tale I've only slightly dramatized. It's a story that in me strong emotions evokes, a tale upon which I choke. Until a few years back, I brought it up first unprovoked to a pair of therapists. They listened like instruments that let me tune my dissonance. I mean, neither by wasp nor bee have I ever even been stung. Just ran in fear from this self-destructive hoax till 3 or 4 years back. I was in a different land with a foreign tongue, and there the wasps and people stayed in harmony for the most part. Their more peaceful coexistence stayed in my heart. These feelings grew in me and wouldn't depart. But now I must, so...